Offering a free consultation or discovery call is one of the most effective ways to build trust, connect with a potential client, and get them to sign up for your coaching services. But I also understand that as a new coach, you may have some concerns with how to lead one of these calls. That's why in today's episode, I want to walk you through a simple framework to lead these calls with confidence and authenticity. And by the end of today's episode, you'll know exactly how to lead one of these calls, connect with clients, address their needs, and guide them towards working with you, all without feeling salesy or being overwhelmed by the process. Hey guys, welcome to Coach Smarter, brought to you by Unshakable Habits. I am your host, Stephen Box. I want to say this up front. Although the ultimate goal of these calls is for you to get new clients signed up, they are not just about selling. They're about connecting, listening to your clients' needs, and showing them how you can help. But here's the challenge. You might feel pressured to show your value up front. You might feel pressure to show this potential client how much you know. And when we do that, it's very easy to oversell and dive straight into our services. Or maybe you're just not sure on how to guide the conversation, or you're worried about feeling salesy. And that's why having a clear framework can make all the difference. So how do you lead a discovery call that feels natural, builds trust, and helps the client feel confident in saying yes? It starts with 4 simple steps that you can use to guide the conversation every single time. And I'm going to give those to you right now. The first step is what we call setting the stage. This is all about creating a warm and welcoming environment for this potential client so that they feel comfortable and valued. So what does that look like? Well, for me in my consultations, I usually start with a greeting. So, for example, we'll say this person's name is Jim. I would say, hey, Jim, thanks so much for taking out the time to be on the call today. What I see a lot of coaches do after this is they go into a lot of small talk. And there's nothing inherently wrong with small talk, but if you overdo it, it can start to feel like a waste of time. So just be very careful about questions such as, oh, how's the weather where you're at, or something like that. The other thing I will see coaches sometimes do here is after the greeting, they just jump right into the services. Like, oh, so what's your goal? Like, what are you trying to work on right now? And, oh, let me tell you about what I offer, right? And they're just like, they're already off to the races. And that's definitely not going to create that warm, welcoming environment that we want to create. Instead, I like to ask a more open-ended question that allows them to kind of express themselves in a very open, honest way. So one of my favorite questions I like to use is, what inspired you to book this call today? So instead of saying like, oh, what's your goal, right? Which is very like object-oriented, like, oh, tell me that you're here to lose weight or you're here to get off some medications or whatever. Instead, it's like, hey, what inspired you to do this today? So it's just a little bit different phrasing of the question, but hopefully you can see how it comes across as a little bit warmer type of question, right? And it gives them that opportunity to share their goals and their challenges, but it also shows them that I'm focused on them, not just pitching my services. All right. Step number 2 is lead with curiosity instead of coaching. So we're going to continue asking open-ended questions here to help uncover their deeper wants and needs, but we want to be careful not to turn it into a coaching call. So for example, you might ask, oh, what have you tried so far to reach this goal? Or what's been your biggest obstacle so far? And it's tempting to jump into sharing your expertise, right? Of highlighting where they could have done better or what you might have recommended to them. And I get it. It's natural to want to show them you know your stuff. But when we do that, 2 things can happen. Number 1, they leave the call feeling like they've already got what they needed. They don't need to hire you. No bueno. Number 2, you might actually overwhelm them or make them feel unheard, which is even worse. When you think about walking into a store, and before you even have an opportunity to say why you're there, the salesperson starts pitching you a specific product or service. I mean, how are you going to feel, right? I mean, that would just be such a turnoff for me if someone starts trying to sell me something when they don't even know what I need yet. And you might feel the same way. Clients don't want to be pitched to. They want to feel heard. When you spend 80% of the call listening and only 20% talking, you help them actually feel understood. I know it sounds counterintuitive because we feel like as coaches, we need to sell ourselves. We need to show off our knowledge. We need to, coach them up. We need to give them all this stuff because that's what's valuable. Great coaches listen way more than they talk. And that's the exact same approach that we need to have in our discovery calls, because that connection is far more powerful than any sales pitch ever could be. And now that you have all these insights about this potential client, you know what their goals are, what their obstacles are, what they have done, what they didn't do, what they liked, what they didn't like, and what they're looking for in a program, you have the opportunity to share your solutions, to show them how your coaching aligns with their needs. But you want to do this strategically. Do not overwhelm them with every detail of your program. Instead, focus on the results they care about the most. I'll give you guys an example from outside of coaching. A few years ago, I was in Toastmasters and I was club president. And one of my responsibilities was to talk with guests from our meetings afterwards about signing up and becoming a member. Now, it would have been very easy for me to pull someone to the side and said to them, hey, listen, we have these books and they have curriculums in them and you give speeches so often and you get feedback from other members and then you make adjustments to it and we're going to set you up with a coach and you're going to have this online portal and it only costs this much. I could have done all that. And I promise you, I probably would have had very few people become members if I had done that, because they would have felt overwhelmed by it. And I don't blame them. But here's the thing. What I did do, and what was very effective, and what I'm going to suggest you also do on these free discovery calls is this. Take all that information that you've learned and ask the person a very simple question. Based on everything you shared with me, what do you think is the biggest benefit that you're going to get from working with me? Now, at Toastmasters, the question was a little bit different. Based on what you saw today in the meeting, what part of it do you feel is going to personally benefit you the most? And that would let them answer that question. But it's the same concept, right? It's a little bit different wording because the environment's different, but same concept. And what I would always do in those meetings was when that person said, oh, you know what, I really liked this aspect of the meeting. Say, for example, they go, I like the fact that every speaker has an evaluator that gives them both positive feedback as well as the areas where they can improve. And I really like the fact that everyone was just so positive in their feedback, but they also were very honest with the person about things they could work on. And they only gave them one or two things instead of overwhelming them. I would always look at the person and go, hey, that's what we do here, right? So if you feel like that's going to benefit you the most, if getting that kind of regular feedback is going to be beneficial to you, do you think that is worth, and I would just insert the amount of a Toastmasters membership, and they say, yeah, absolutely. I say, great. Are you ready to sign up? That's simple. I mean, how easy is that, right? You can do the exact same thing with these coaching calls or with these consultations. When you get all that information that you get at step 2 from somebody, you don't need to tell them everything that's in your system. You just say like, hey, look, you told me this, this, and this. Okay, let me rephrase. There's 2 ways you can go about this. Number 1, If they gave you something and you already have a solution in mind that will fit perfectly to what they said, you could say, you told me X, Y, and Z. I offer X, Y, Z, or I offer X, and that will help you with this because. Does that sound good to you? The other option is you could say, based on everything you've told me today, what is the one thing you'd really most like to focus on that you feel like I can help you with? And then when they tell you that, then you say, okay, awesome. I think the program that will be best for you based on that is this because of that. And that's it. It's that simple. You don't need to overcomplicate this solution. If you try to tell them everything you do, if you try to go, oh, you get 4 calls a month and you get access to me through WhatsApp and you can text me at the grocery store to make sure you're getting the right kind of chicken, which, by the way, I would never do that, but I'm just throwing that out there as an example, right? But if you tell someone every single thing you do, including the things that aren't really relevant to their biggest concern right then, you're giving them extra stuff to think about. You're creating resistance unintentionally. Focus on only providing the solutions to the problems that they have presented to you. And that, again, can either be something that you ask them directly, hey, what is it that you want to work on? Or if they've already given you that information, then you can share with them what solution you have and why you feel like it's the best fit based on what their concerns are. And finally, step number 4, create a clear next step. So I already kind of gave you a little bit of this as part of step number 3, but the natural way to transition is to say something like, does this sound like what you're looking for? And if they say yes, then go ahead and give them that next step. Great. I'll send over the agreement and we'll get you scheduled for your first session. Now, I do want to add something here, and this is super important and will save you so much headache. This is the time to also get all the uncertainty out of the way for yourself. Okay, not just them. So you want to be very clear. You want to make sure that they understand the next step, but you also want to ask some questions such as, great, if I get that agreement over to you today, can you go ahead and get your payment submitted and get your first call scheduled? By saying that, they are now going to commit to, yes, it will be today, or they're going to say, well, it will probably be tomorrow. And now you know when to expect it, because I've had times where I've sent someone a payment and it takes them a couple of days to get it. And now I'm sitting there going, man, did I do something wrong? Did I mess up? Are they no longer interested? Like, what exactly is the problem? Right? So ask that question up front, get that clarity, because if you don't, it's just leaving room for anxiety for yourself. You don't have to do it, right? It's not a make or break thing, but it's just a little piece of advice that I have found extremely helpful. The second thing that I would really suggest that you do here is get permission to follow up. A lot of times people will say yes in the moment because they're feeling really confident. But the moment you hang up the call or shut off the video or whatever, the doubt starts to kick in, right? They start to go, did I make the right decision? Am I rushing into this? Can I really afford this? They start thinking about things that they need to spend money on other stuff, and things come up and the doubt starts to creep into their heads. And when that happens, they're not going to follow up with you and go, hey, you know what? I really appreciate your time, but I'm starting to have some second thoughts here. So I just need a little bit of time to think about it. No, they're just going to ghost you, right? And they're going to depend on you to press the issue. But if you ask that first question, they say, yes, I will be signed up by tomorrow. And you say to them, hey, listen, I don't want you to feel pressure to do anything here. But if I don't hear from you by tomorrow, if you haven't signed up by tomorrow, is it okay if I follow up with you to see if you have any additional questions I can answer? Again, this is really more for you. This is more your clarity on these two questions, but things I would highly recommend. But just make sure that if nothing else, you give them the clear next step as to when everything is going to be coming. So let me recap this for you real quickly. So number one is to set the stage, create that warm, welcoming environment. Number two is lead with curiosity, but be careful not to sell. Or not to sell, be careful not to coach them. Number three, share your solutions strategically. Do not overwhelm them with every detail of your program. And number four, create that clear next step so everyone is on the same page. As we get ready to wrap up, I do want to say thank you for joining me today for another episode of Coach Smarter. And, I just want to leave you guys with this very simple thought that discovery calls are your chance to connect authentically and show clients that you're the coach that they need to reach their goals. And if you follow this framework I gave you today, I know you will have success in getting more clients signed up when you get them onto those calls. If you have any follow-up questions on today's episode, 2 ways that you can reach me. Number one is on Instagram. You can send me a DM over there at Coach Smarter Podcast is my handle. You can also send me a text. There is a link down in the show notes to send me a text, and also my Instagram handle is down there. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you have on today's episode. And if you loved this episode, got great value out of it, please consider sharing it with another coach and help them also coach smarter. Be sure to join us on our next episode as I'm sitting down with Rob Tracy, who overcame burnout and found a way to align his business with his values and priorities. Rob's going to share his 6-step framework for building resilience, optimizing your life, and doing great things, all while staying true to what matters most. Until then, this is Stephen Box reminding you that coaching smarter creates a lasting impact for you and those you serve.